Savik, start.
Sure. Good evening and welcome yet again to another session of Time's Ascent. I am Avik Das and will be moderating the session for the next 1 hour. Now today we will discuss about how to crack job and especially video interviews at a time when face-to-face interviews have really taken a backseat over the last 12 months due to the pandemic. But perhaps that is not all. More companies have been using it, and more so now, and because they realize how efficient it is in terms of saving time and resource. As we all know, that thousands of employees have been interviewed and onboarded virtually by all the tech companies like TCS, Infosys, Wipro in India over the last 12 months. To discuss all of these with us, we have three esteemed panelists who will be able to throw further light on this topic. There is Khalid Raza, Associate Director Talent at EY. Raza is an accomplished talent leader with about 15 years of experience, and he has great experience in identifying organizational needs and providing innovative, strategic business solutions. He is working as a talent acquisition lead for North and East India and Bangladesh at EY. He has also worked in IBM and Satyam and has extensive experience in managing local and global teams. In 2016, he was named in the top 25 HR executive under 40 by the Workforce magazine. Welcome, Khalid, on board. Next, we have Nikhileshwar Singh. He is the HR director at NatWest Group Tech India. Now, Singh is an HR leader with experience of creating and leading high-performing teams. He has experience in setting up and growing India operations of large multinationals in technology, banking, telecom, and infrastructure. He has expertise in human capital strategy, recruitment, and talent management, and international mobility as well. Great to have you with us, Nikhil. Welcome on board.
Thank you. Look forward to interacting.
Pleasure. And finally, there is Soma Pandey, who's another dynamic HR leader with strong global experience delivering business results as a strategic partner in multinational companies across BPO, ITES, HR services, and the FMCG sector. Pandey has more than about 2 decades of experience and as a president of HR at First Source Solutions recently, and earlier the chief people officer at the Indian subsidiary of Dutch multinational company Randstad. She has a track record of building competent, motivated, and successful HR teams. Welcome, Soma, on the panel. Great to have you with us as well.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great, pleasure. I mean, I know it's a really dynamic environment. Things have probably changed for good over the last 12 months. So let's, all three of you, let's get into the discussion mode straight away. Probably I can start with Khalid. What is the difference between let's say a face-to-face interview, a telephonic interview, and video interviews? What can candidates really expect out of these three interviews, and especially the latest, the video ones?
I think the biggest change is exactly what we're facing right now. We all are connected virtually. Had this been a normal world, we would have been in a conference hall, looking at each other, probably being able to interact in a much more, cohesive way. What technology does, it enables a lot of things. At the same time, it hinders some aspects of it. So of course, telephonic interviews have existed for long time now. Video interviews are scaling up because of the pandemic which has hit us. So a lot of organizations which were thinking about it had to really deploy technology right then and there. Otherwise, functions would have failed. But at the same time, it hasn't taken away what the assessment happens over an interaction. Your assessment remains the same because at the end of the day, you're looking for those certain skills, aspects, and characteristics which you need for the role. So from that perspective, the interviews remain the same. It's the technology and the way we are doing the interview which has gone through a paradigm change. And I think over a period of next 60 minutes, we're going to talk about what exactly that change is and dive deeper into some of the aspects of how to enable the candidates as well as interviewers, because it's a change for them as well.
Great. Just take it to Soma, what do you think? What are some of the major changes that candidates can expect? And also the recruiters, what are some of the changes that they've brought in? let's talk it from both the sides, from the employers' side as well as from the people who wish to be recruited. What are some of the changes that both sides should expect? You are on mute, Soma.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so it's been a learning curve for both candidates as well as recruiters, getting used to not having a person walk into your office face to face. As you know, communication is all about body language plus the words you use and the tonality of your voice. Now, body language, when you're seeing a person only from shoulder above, it's difficult to gauge what they are feeling and how engaged they are. Voice tonality, if the connection is poor, that also takes a toll. So what you really have to go to is the words and the pauses that the candidate is using. And already there is enough research which tells us that lots of biases creep in the recruiter's mind. If the connection is poor and two candidates are equally good, the one with the better connection tends to get hired because they appear to be more competent. So that is something the recruiters have to keep in mind of any biases of that nature, that no person because of their connectivity is at a disadvantage during an interview, and when they walked in person they might have scored similar marks. So for recruiters to deal with that, to be very aware of their own biases, to give that candidate enough opportunity to represent themselves at their very best, those are the things that the recruiters have to watch out. The questions have to be formulated in a very clear and succinct manner, because you may not have the opportunity to clarify, repeat all of that. In person, when you say something, the listener can guess what you're actually asking by the way you stress the words or the way your body is moving. But in remote, you have to be very conscious how you're asking the questions and how you're rating the candidates. From the candidate's perspective, if you focus on the positives, right, you will never land up for an interview sweating and full of smoke in your hair and all, because you're not going anywhere. You have the luxury of being at home. The AC in the office won't bother you, because sometimes it's cold and sometimes it's not so comfortable. So there are many advantages, and you should focus on the fact that you have a lot of control now as a candidate on the environment and the comfort with which you can take the interview. But like Khalid said already, that the basic content doesn't change. Prepare, 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 right? Who you are and how you will project that. Why you're seeking that job, that will be asked. So be very clear what interests you. Have some questions ready for the interviewer to engage them and get some more information. So those things which anybody can read in many interview preparation guides, those doesn't change. But focus on preparation both from technology side and the people around you. They should not make a noise and all of that. So I think we will get into that maybe more in detail. But be conscious of the fact that it's only your face and your voice with which you have to win this interview. So how you're going to play with that, practice, rehearse. I would recommend recording yourself talking into a phone or something, so that you know how you sound and you get used to it. Looking at a camera and giving an interview when you're already nervous, it's not an easy task. We all know that. So just practice a little bit would be my thing. So yeah, those are the things that are changing. Not rocket science, but things to be aware of.
Great point, Soma. I just wanted to ask you one thing, just a follow-up question before I move over to Nikhil. You talk about certain biases that creep up in the minds of the recruiters. If there is a let's say some sort of a bad network or a bad connectivity. What are some of the other biases that can actually creep up during such virtual interviews
Yeah, so
that
if you
even the
read some,
recruiter should be aware of?
yeah, so if you read some of the research out there, when people get conscious, they tend to freeze up and their face looks very bored or scared or something. Their voice sounds monotonous and they keep talking at a monotone, right? So it feels like they are not interested, or they don't know the subject, or maybe something will move on the screen, they get distracted, or someone will walk in, they get distracted. So then they end up appearing less confident, less competent than they actually are. So recruiters have to be very clear what they are looking for and not get digressed by these extraneous circumstances which may be happening in front of the candidate. So empathy from a recruiter side is, I think, important in these times, so that no, you don't end up losing a good candidate simply because of what might be going around in their environment or their newness with using this kind of technology. See, ultimately, we all have to get used to using technology, working remotely, because that might carry on in the future. But one can understand that if it's your first job or you're very new to this kind of a thing, it may take you 1 or 2 attempts to get used to it. And companies and recruiters should make allowance for that and not judge very harshly, I think.
Okay, great points. Thank you. Thank you so much, Soma. Nikhil, moving over to you, just one question before another follow-up one. Do you think that virtual interviews are here to stay in the long run? Like, let's say 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, do you feel that, just as we talk about a hybrid work model, would we also talk about a hybrid form of interview? Some may be walk-in, some may be virtual, some may be face-to-face. What are we looking at actually?
Thank you, Avik, and a very relevant question, right? So it's not that video interviews are new. I mean, we work with technology firms for ages. There were always video interviews that existed, and more so, and I'm talking about pre-pandemic era, the video interviews were necessitated by the fact that the candidate could not travel, was located in a different city, or because of cost reasons. Because if you would have seen, a lot of startups came up promoting video interviews because cost was always a driver, right? Now, so video interview is not new, but given the pandemic, I think we've moved to a stage where we're doing 100% video interviews, and most companies are taking those precautions to ensure nobody's at risk. Now, if you look at the ways of working, the way it's evolving, and I'm sure in most organizations, we're not going to go back to 100% work from office in most organizations. There are exceptions where, people will have front-facing roles, etc., like, core banking services, where you will continue to work with customers. But in non-customer facing organizations, even the ways of work are evolving, and most technology organizations are going to go back to a maximum of 40 to 50%. And that's a different sort of work that's happening. Now, as a repercussion of that, or as a downstream impact, you will see the video interviews becoming much more prominent. And I would say you could see a version 3, version 4 of video interviews, where you're not only doing real video interviews, but also to an extent of getting pre-scheduled time for yourself, and you do an assessment and the assessor is not present. So assessor sort of assesses the interviews later. So I think it's going to evolve, and my sense is it's going to get better. So video interviews are here to stay, and it's important that we as candidates or as employers just get used to the idea of video interviews for future.
What are some of the new let's say evolution angles that we can expect in a video interview in the next few years?
Okay, this is a guess as good as yours, right? So I think some organizations, and there are some startups really doing well from India, they've got to a mode of faceless interview, right? So that's one form of interview that's going to be there. Interviewer not being present and pre-scheduled questions. So you basically get a slot, you go there, interview questions keep popping up onto your screen, you record your responses, and these are like very intelligent interviews. So your level of questions will vary depending upon how you respond to the previous question, and then you go ahead and respond to those interviews. One form of intervention where video interviews are really going to evolve, guessing from the software aspects is still very easy, right? Because you can get the software aspects and responses on them recorded, and you can look at body language, the quality of responses, etc. But I think how we evolve the same form of interviewing for technology questions is something that work is being done on, right? So say if you're interviewing a candidate for Java, now how do you assess the level of difficulty when it's an intelligent interview is what I would call. So there's work happening, and I see that evolving a little bit further.
Okay, got it. And just a follow-up question, how to speak for a job interview, I mean for a video interview, is it going to be very markedly different from what a face-to-face interview is? Like, how do I get myself positioned in front of the camera?
Good question, right? So before we get into how to speak, I think we're chatting about it. It's important that your infrastructure is set, right? More so, and then Soma talked about the biases that creep in. Now, reality is we as humans would want to understand everything legibly being said across to us, right? Now, it's important that I as an interviewer understand what you're trying to respond to, and hence The tone is important. I think it's important that we don't rush with the discussion. More often than not, and we all have been interviewers, I've seen candidates rushing through the responses. So take your time, think through, ask the interviewer if he or she understands what you're responding to, because that's important. Rephrase yourself and understand if the interviewer is understanding. And voice modulation will continue to be there, right? It always used to be a factor in your in-person interview. So voice modulations, your tone, tenor, etc., will continue to be there. So phrase your sentences well, practice, and Soma did allude to that fact, right? So practice, and it always helps to sort of do a recording of yourself. I remember initially when I used to go for webinars in the virtual world, I would record and see if I'm being able to present my point of view. Body language, etc., has to be very well modulated, because you are in a frame where very limited visibility is possible. So how do I bring that out in my tone of voice and my eye contact? So these factors will continue to play.
Okay, great points, Nikhil. I'll move over to Khalid just to extrapolate what Nikhil said. What are some of the key steps to prepare for such video interviews? What do you think? What are your views?
I think video interviews, as rightly said, your infrastructure is something which is very important for a video interview to happen seamlessly, and as Soma was alluding to it. I think the biggest advantage a candidate has is just the familiarity of the environment. Like, I'm sitting in my home today, I know what I need for this interview to be successful. I need a glass of water. Do I need pen and paper? Can I have notes which are right next in front of me, which I can reference? Because at the end of the day, you're talking to somebody. And as Nikhil was saying, preparing for it is most important. I remember I did a long time ago did a course on how to be a good speaker. So you need to record yourself, and once you start recording yourself, you'll see a lot of things that you need to change about yourself, whether it's fillers or foregons, whether it's eye contact, whether it's intonation, modulation, your pronunciation. Sometimes we don't even know whether our pronunciations are going haywire. The other aspect, apart from these pieces, is that knowing the concept which you're delivering. Right? So you're appearing for an interview, that doesn't change, that's going to remain the same. One thing which I wanted to allude to the previous question about what's going to happen in the video interview, and it's just a guesstimate. I think a lot of AR, VR might come in an interview, because one of the pieces which organizations have not been able to project is how good they are. So right now, initially when a candidate walks into the office, you have really nice offices to show. You can show the facility. Their experiences at this point in time is missing. It's more of a transactional interaction which happens. And as Nikhil was saying, it's most of the time rushed transactional interaction which is going on. I think that might just play a different role altogether. But who knows how it goes.
Okay. Great points. Soma, you want to add anything? I mean, you did say a lot about preparation, talking in front of the in front of the camera or the mic. What are some of the other suggestions that you have?
I think first thing you should do is find out what application or what software the interviewer is going to be using. Do you need to download an application or not? It happened to me yesterday, Avik, when we wanted to do a prep and trial run for this, right? Took me 20 minutes to log on simply because I assumed it was going to be on Zoom and I didn't have GoToMeeting on my phone. And then I logged on from the phone, turned out it doesn't work on phone. You have to log on to laptop. And that I was feeling very bad. I'm sure if I was in an interview, I would be sweating and, not be at my best if I had such a trial and error. So make sure that you know what application you're prepared for it. And make sure you're doing this with seriousness. If you had gone to an office to take an interview, you would have dressed up, you would have focused on this and not done anything else on the side. So do that. Tell your family members or people who share your living space or wherever you're taking the interview from to give you that space, not make noise. The light should be proper. Set it up in a way that your face looks happy, smiling, enthusiastic. It should not be in a dark that you look like you're sad or something. So those things it's a little bit like being in a TV studio. See where the light is coming from, see the camera angle. I mean, you have to act a little bit like a movie star and powder your nose a little bit if you're shining, but because that makes the first impression.
Okay, okay. But don't you think, I mean, candidates who are appearing for these video interviews nowadays are slightly in a better position in the sense that they're all doing it all from home? I mean, that probably gives them a lot of comfort ground. Uh, what's your
And
take on
they're
that?
used to selfies and things. You're used to selfies, and also you know what angle you look
Mhm.
best from. I think it's
No, I think no, you're right, Avik. I think being at home has its advantages and disadvantages, and I think one of the things I want to drive home to the candidates is that please understand the person who is interviewing is also human and undergoing the same challenges that candidates are going through. So there's nothing to be nervous about it. Like Soma said, I face infrastructure issues. Simple things that help, right? When your internet is connected to a broadband, ensure you have a UPS backup in place. I'm not saying go ahead and buy UPS, but it always helps because you never know when your connection is sort of going to go down. So those simple
Mhm.
checks around technology being in place, applications being in place, uh, dress, I would say, on a conservative side, because uh, if you're wearing a very bright and shiny shirt with your background which is hazy, it's going to distract the interviewer. I'm not saying that's going to be a deal breaker, but why do you want to make that interview a little less attractive? So when
Mhm.
it comes to dressing, dress are on the side of caution, right? uh, Different
Mhm.
organizations have different culture, so it helps to connect with the recruiter to understand what's appropriate dressing to be done for this interview. There are organizations who promote casual culture and a t-shirt is fine, but there are organizations who expect you to be well dressed, and so I alluded to it. If you were to go in an office for an interview, you would dress up. You will now have the comfort of dressing up at home and dressing up well. So those small things make a difference, because understand, for the same job that a candidate is applying, there will be seven more. And if there are seven that I have to interview, I would probably look out for the one who's more serious in addition to the skills. And that does act as a differentiator. So that's important.
I think
Got it,
another
got it.
just to add to what Nikhil is saying, for one job there's seven more. Now with video interviews, that percolation is far deeper. So that seven has actually become 70. Because earlier the region stopped us from interacting a lot of people, but now that barrier is gone.
Okay. So do you think the candidates need to be more prepared? I mean, keeping in mind these newer scenarios?
I think it's how you look at it. Earlier, I was restricted to a region where I can go for an interview, right? Now I can appear for an interview which is happening in Bangalore, and right away I can appear for an interview which is happening in Chennai, right? This within a span of 2 hours, and that is true for all the candidates. So that kind of creates a even playing landscape for everybody. However, it creates the that landscape for everybody, which means there are more people who are available for the job, and there are more jobs available as well.
Khalid, what do you think? What could be some of those typical interview bloopers that candidates should try and avoid? Do not make those faux pas. I think
I
that
think
should be an important point to keep in mind.
some of the ones that we have already spoken of, but then again, technology can always go bad. There's hardly a control people can have, but you need to be prepared for it. I remember recently I was interviewing somebody, and the laptop was not charged, and then it just shut off, and we didn't know how to reach the candidate. So these things do happen. While I'm in an environment which is my own environment, am I taking enough care to ensure that there is less disruption? Now, while there will be disruption, my kid will walk in, and you can't stop those things, but how many times those disruptions need to be taken into the context? Lightning, and how you appear in front of the camera, all of these things are important. But at the end of the day, we all are humans. As Nikhil was saying, we all understand that these things do happen and we come back. But as long as your content, your delivery, and your articulation is clear, and you're able to make points to the person who's sitting, I would say in this case, across the laptop, that's more important than some of the other aspects. But they do impact the overall flavor that the interview will get.
Okay, okay, got it. Next question, I'll take it. From all the three of you, need a couple of points. When there's a face-to-face interview, there are ways in which the hiring manager, assesses the candidate on a holistic view. when video interviews are being done, what are some of the points that even the hiring manager should keep in mind to get an overall view of the candidate? I can probably start with Khalid and then probably move over to Nikhil one by one.
As I said, the interview mode does not actually restrict us in understanding a lot of things. Of course, there are limitations where you can't see the body language, you can't see some of the body expressions that the person would be projecting. So those limitations do exist. But at the end of the day, if your interview itself is structured, you're able to get most of the information out from the candidate. And at the same time, candidates should also look at these limitations and prepare well the kind of responses they would want to give to some of the questions that will be asked to them. So it's kind of a learning approach that even a recruiter or an interviewer plus a candidate both need to go through to get the maximum out of the interviews.
Okay. Soma, your point of views?
Yeah, I would just add to what Khalid is saying that from an interviewer perspective, you have to be prepared with very clear set of questions that you will ask, which will give you the information that you need. From an interviewee point of view, I would say that don't give very long-winding answers right at the beginning. Allow for time for the questions to follow up and the interviewer to be able to probe on those aspects which are important to them. So start with a high-level answer, and then if they say, can you elaborate more on a particular topic, then you get into that. But if, for example, they ask you what's been your biggest success in the last 6 months, and you start and you tell the whole story, it might take you 20 minutes if you're trying to elaborate on each and every aspect and point, and you don't know what they are looking for. So either before you start answering, ask, is there any specific thing you would like me to focus on? Or give a short high-level answer and then wait for them to probe. I think because we are relying more on words and the facts and content, it's more important to be very clear and specific and to the point and get that bits of information out.
Okay. Nikhil, you want to add here?
Yeah, so I think Khalid and Soma have articulated well. As an interviewer, what helps me, especially in video interviews, is creating that initial relationship. And I know it's tough, but just put the candidate at ease and show your human angle while talking, right? So it just helps initial 2-3 minutes to chit chat about something that's completely unrelated, whether how are they feeling, how's the pandemic impacting them. I think that tends to ease out candidates a lot, drives out that nervousness, because I believe if you're able to put the candidate at ease, you're normally able to get real authentic responses, especially on the behavioral questions. So I think that's one. Second, it helps, and especially most of the HR interviews or personality interviews are largely what you would call a behavioral event interviewing, right? So you would try to assess the reactions rather than the responses, right? So you don't look at whether the candidate is giving right or wrong responses, but the thought process that gets into the candidate's mind, right? So it helps to articulate to candidates as to what are you trying to assess, right? Because it then helps build that funnel of thinking in the candidate. So I'm not I don't hesitate to tell the candidate, look, I'm through this question, I'm trying to assess your innovation or critical thinking skills, and that sort of helps the candidate steer into direction that you want your responses to be. So those are some of the things that help as an interviewer. As an interviewee, listen, it's important, because in video interviews more so than in person interviews, the minute a question is posed, we tend to respond. So we tend to answer rather than think through the rationale for that question and respond, right? So that's important. Take your time, and if you need time to think, just tell the interviewer that, look, can I think through this question for 2 minutes and then sort of respond. And I don't think anybody would mind, because you would rather get a right response than just a response.
I think that's a very valid point. I didn't really actually think about this before. That are you saying that interviewees tend to answer faster or quicker when they're doing such video interviews compared to if they were doing a face-to-face one?
And then Soma and Khalid may respond as well, but I have seen that the minute a question is posed, the initial sort of reaction is to respond, because I don't know, the video interviewing doesn't show the body language. Whereas when you're in a relaxed in-person environment, you would normally take the time out, read the body language of the interviewer. Please understand, interviewee is also trying to understand the body language of the interviewer. So his or her instant reaction would be to respond rather than take the time, think through, and then respond.
And what could be the reason behind this, Khalid? Yeah.
I just, and again, I don't know if there is any studies done on this, but I think it's more to do with, there are a lot of things which are happening on the screen sometimes, like what I see right now. There are a lot of things, and including my own projection, right? And humans generally try to look at themselves more than they would want to look at someone else. And in a normal face-to-face interview, it's easier for me to look at Soma if I'm being interviewed, what her expressions are, and my responses are making more sense to her. Am I getting those nods from her? Am I getting that impression from her whether it is actually making sense? I think that could be one of the pieces that we need to factor in. And I just realized it when I'm looking at the screen. That could be one way of doing it, which is to see only the person you're speaking with. The second piece is, of course, your comfort with the technology. I think that's where it boils down to at the end of the day. While we all are very comfortable taking selfies and making those videos, but when it comes to a serious conversation, we have never done it. Now, the generation which is there in the schools now are learning it right from the start. But our generation, or the people who are passing out from colleges these days, haven't done it so often that it's natural for them. However, other interactions of an interview is natural for people. They've sat through multiple interviews like this. So I think it's progression, but at the same time, people need to consciously simulate that environment with their friends, with their relatives, to see they can do an interview and then record it and see if you're actually making a lot of unnecessary body movements or unnecessary hand movements. Are your eyes going everywhere? Are you missing out on certain aspects or certain pieces that you need to cover in that response?
Okay. So do you feel you need a control of your body movement and postures as well for these video interviews?
Of course.
So you can't be throwing your hands all around, right, over the video. That probably looks very, very odd.
I think you need to be natural, but that natural, as Nikhil was talking about, shouldn't be taking the focus away from the interview.
Got it. Great. Soma, one question for you. We talked about the 360-degree view that recruiters need to have. There are also, a host of challenges that probably the interviewee has, because probably they're doing it for the first time. What are some of the challenges that, from the interviewer perspective that they face? You have interviewed probably, tens and hundreds of people probably over the last 1 year. So has Nikhil and Khalid. What are some of those challenges that, from your perspective, you can talk about, that even that interviewees should keep in mind?
I think we've covered all of the different things in different aspects. I'm just wondering if there's anything left out. I'll tell you a couple of times what I have found very irritating is when the interviewee has not bothered to understand how the interview will be conducted, and they are last moment flapping about with the material or the apps or whatever. The other thing I have felt is that sometimes I feel that alongside the video they have some text open and they are reading from that. It's almost like cheating. And as experienced interviewers, most of us can tell when you're not speaking and you're reading off of a script. So be aware of that if you walked into an interview, you won't have a cheat sheet with you. So don't assume that you can have it in a video interview. Still, you are a person and the person on the other side is interacting with you. So be genuine and honest in that interaction. So I think, yeah, unpreparedness or the assumption on the candidate's part that video won't be required. So they come in and say, oh, I didn't know it was going to be a video interview. So assume it's going to be a video interview. Most good companies and good recruiters will want to see you face to face at least for one interaction before they make the choice, because hopefully they are hiring you for a long-term career with their company. They want to see how you fit in, what you bring to the table. So assume there will be a video interview, be prepared. Don't take unnecessary advantage by having some cheat sheets and things around which you read off of because it comes through. I think those would be the additional points I will leave apart from all that we've discussed separately.
Okay, okay. Just take it over to Nikhil. You have anything else to add here to this question?
Soma has summed it up well, right? I think uh, you have to be authentic, and that is not any different from what you would be in your normal interview. So don't try to be someone that you're not, or don't try to project something that you're not, right? So it's important, if you don't know responses to a question, it's very okay to respond saying I do not. And then, like I said, an interviewee normally, and that's true for all of us, normally is in a better position and more well informed than an interviewer is with regards to himself or herself. So you, if you are an interviewer, you know about yourself much better than I do. So it's just about going there confidently and articulating what you know. So have a discussion. Don't rush into a response mode for the heck of it. Don't ask questions for the heck of it, right? I think that's something that I find a little distracting, when an interviewee asks question because he or she has to. If there are genuine questions, please pause, uh, ask those questions, clarify, because that sort of builds my interest as an interviewer as well, and have the discussion going. So that's extremely important. Authenticity, being real, being yourself, and just being prepared. Preparedness is extremely important.
Absolutely. Khalid, anything to add there?
No, I think I completely agree with Nikhil. Questions should be asked for the intent of knowing, and I think it's if an interviewer, ideally all the interviewers should give that option. If you follow structured interview, you'll have to give the option to the candidate to ask questions. I think candidates should grab onto it and have those meaningful questions to be asked, so that you can get to know more about the role. Because knowing more about the company is all available on internet, and most of the time candidates ask that question, right? How is the culture? And you can't answer that question, how is the culture of the organization, because culture is kind of consisting of thousands of cultures within the organization. So ask more about the role. You can ask about how you can prepare in the time till the time you actually get the job to be better for that role. There could be multiple questions that could be asked, and I think as everybody has already covered most of the things, the intent should be that it is a conversation, because at the end of the day, while we call it an interview, it's a conversation where you are evaluating the company for the role and the company is evaluating you for the role. So it's both the parties have vested interest in preparing and investing as much time as is needed there.
Got it. Great points, Nikhil. Sorry, Khalid. Soma, one more question. Earlier in the conversation, you talked about empathy from the recruiter's point towards interviewees. Can you just elaborate a bit on that? What exactly you mean there?
I meant that don't be quick to judge or discard or assign an explanation to a person's behavior which is negative to them rather than to what might be happening around them. So I think that's what I was talking about, that take it at face value, try to understand where they are coming from, give the benefit of the doubt that maybe you misheard something or they got distracted by something that is happening in their environment, or there was a technology glitch. Don't hold it against the person, because while we said that there are more jobs and there are more candidates, the fact is that we need good talent. As companies, we need good talent just as much as candidate needs good jobs. So we can't afford to lose talent simply because of one or two things that happen which are not relevant to the job and the position and their competency.
Okay, two more questions from my end, and this is probably nothing to do with job interviews per se, but from the HR perspective, I would like to understand. Has it been a really challenging situation onboarding new recruitees, post job interviews or post virtual interviews over the last 12 months, or has it been a seamless ride for you, all of you?
I can go first, because you know what, I changed my job when there was pandemic. So I joined my existing organization on 1st of April. So as a person who was onboarded, I can tell you it was tough, right? Because when you are in office and that touch and feel, and the fact that you're able to go out and have a discussion freely was missing, right? So I look at it from a short-term and long-term perspective. From a short-term perspective, look, the processes were in place, and most organizations now have a virtual onboarding process, which is largely tech-enabled, human interface free, and pretty well set, and then all good organizations have done that. Where it becomes more challenging is first third, what I would call, the first 30, 60, 90 days, how your journey has been, right? Now, doing everything virtually has that disadvantage, because every transaction or interaction, transaction would be the wrong word, every interaction you would have is virtually, and hence it has to become a meeting. So the amount of time you end up spending in meeting rather than building relationships sort of goes away, and that's really, I would say, the biggest challenge as a person who's being onboarded. As a firm, when I'm onboarding, I am missing that quick speed of the person being productive versus the person just being onboarded. So I think, and then I don't know if there are studies that have been done, but my sense is that getting people to become more productive is taking a little more time than usual. I'm sure we will get over this because technology is becoming better. There are virtual onboarding tools coming in, but we have some time to sort of get there.
Okay, Khalid and Soma, your points.
No, I agree with Nikhil, and I can just relate to it because some of the times, so being productive is one aspect which is, of course, going to take time because you are not able to build those relationships. I think the engagement takes a big hit as well because when you are in office, and I can relate it back to the office days, the team is around, if thousands of interaction need to happen, which happen in talent acquisition, those get sorted very quickly because you're around people and you can leverage on one another. But now for everything, as Nikhil said, you have to get back to a meeting. And I think forging those relationships becomes a little difficult. And that's again, I would say, a responsibility of the organization as well as the individual to come together and create those forums where people can just talk about themselves and share more, because otherwise all you know is the face and the name. You don't know anything about the individual, what they like, what they don't like, because you're not seeing them. Consciously, subconsciously, you're not seeing them what brand of coffee do they like, as simple as that. I think
Week is frozen.
Yeah.
See, this is the challenge of technology, right? So, but and then I think, Khalid, while you said that, one of the things we were contemplating about, organizations, culture is extremely important, and culture is largely built in offices when you hang around with people.
Yeah.
That's going to be one big challenge in the virtual world. How do you build that organization culture? On Zoom, possible, but is it as good as what you would do in personal interactions? Probably different. So I think future of work is going to be more about, get people back to office for collaboration and culture building. And, work can be done from anywhere. We realized that in last 12 months that execution happens, but the culture building, the interactions will always happen in offices. So future of work will be get people to office for building relationships and culture.
True.
Yeah, my 2 cents on that has been, my learning has been that the ease of onboarding or the effectiveness really depends on two things. One is certain kinds of roles make it easier. The ones which have very clear deliverables, they have very set procedures to be followed. Those are easier to onboard and get going, right? If you are a Java programmer, you more or less know what you have to do, and when you shift companies, it's not that much difficult. Or if you're a IT testing or something like that. But if you're in an influencing role where relationships are more important, then it takes longer to perspective. Similarly, types of people, right? If you're an introvert and you don't want to waste time around the cooler and coffee chats, then you are quite happy being okay, fine, this is my job, this is my boss, and I will just do it sitting here. I'm quite happy. But extroverts are finding it that much more difficult to be inducted, and they're missing that touch and feel of being in an office and experiencing that one-to-one or a group culture. And absolutely about the smell of the place or culture that we talk about, it is done a lot by observing how your leaders behave, whether doors are open or shut, what kind of an office you sit in, what colors are around and things, and which we are all missing, I think, as HR people, contrary to finance guys who want to shut down all offices and move virtual. We are all like, no, let's bring them back as soon as possible because it does make an impact. Avik, can you still hear us?
Doesn't look like.
Like,
We can't hear you, Avik.
He's dropped off again.
and all of this can happen in an interview as well.
Nice.
Live case study. I don't see any questions in the window.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Avik.
Sorry. So I think the best example I have actually set it for the viewers what not to do during these virtual sessions. Sorry, extremely sorry about that. We'll have to take up the questions now because we are running a little late. The first question is from Priya Sinha, and she asks that what should be the exact distance between camera or the webcam and the desktop, while conducting these job interviews. Anybody wants to, have a go for it?
Well, I would say look at what it is capturing. Two things you have to keep in mind. One is the video and the other is the audio. So in what portion of your body is it covering and what surrounding it is covering. And if there is, your clothes hanging on a peg in the wall, then take them off. If there is a bed or something, then try not to have that. Try to be in a professional space where you either have a blank space or some nice background which you can see. So see what is at a comfort level. The other is your voice should reach the mic. If you're using an inbuilt mic, then test it out to see that how loud you have to speak for it to catch it clearly so that the person hears you. I think that would be my thumb rules for deciding how far you should be from the camera.
Okay. There is Pranav Malhotra, and he asked that kindly share some tips for preparing and acing the interviews for remote jobs. Nikhil, Khalid, I will throw this question to both of you.
So I think we discussed about it, but
we discussed it, of course. Yeah.
But let me sort of re-articulate. I think preparation from a technology perspective is the most important. You have to make sure your infrastructure is in place. Do what I would call a dry run for your interview to ensure you're audible, legible, visible. Soma spoke about it. The background shouldn't be very flashy. If there are clothes hanging, just take them off. Make sure you let your family members know that you're going through an interview process, so that there aren't dogs coming in while you're talking to an interviewer. While it's all acceptable, but just to be safe, make sure your bandwidth of internet is fine, and Khalid and we spoke about it, right? So make sure that's there. Your UPS is functioning if you're connected to a broadband. So that's from a technology perspective. From a dressing perspective, dress as required by the organization appropriately. I would not say dress very conservatively or dress very casually. It depends on what kind of organization you're going to interview for, but it's always better to err on the side of caution. Preparation from a content perspective, same as what you would do for an in-person interview. Think through what questions could be asked. Understand what interviews are you going for, right? So if it's technology, be prepared with your technology responses. Have your questions in place in terms of any curiosity about the job that you have, that you want, and then Khalid spoke about it, right? So have your questions in place, and most importantly, be authentic. Don't try to be something that you're not. So when you're having a discussion, please understand, like I always said, interviews are not about testing your knowledge. It's more about testing your thinking process. And as long as I think the candidate is thinking in the right direction, I would rather go for the candidate than not.
Okay, Khalid, your take?
No, I think Nikhil summed it up. I don't think there's any scope to add anything there.
Great. Then I'll probably throw the next question to you, and this is Neha Sinha, and I think it's a fairly relevant question. She asks that, as a hiring manager, how should we really judge a candidate's body language?
We don't judge body languages. We take inferences from the body language, and when we meet people, we understand from the body language if the person is comfortable, are they not comfortable, or do they, if they are actually know the subject that is being spoken of. I think those aspects are missing. And of course, when you're face to face, and I keep giving this example to a lot of people, you bump up with somebody in an aisle, you reactively say sorry. But when your car brushes another car, you end up fighting. And it's the distance which creates that. Same human being. So I think that's where your face-to-face interviews kind of be more comfortable, if I may use that word. So body language comes from that perspective. It is not a criteria to reject anybody or select anybody. It just complements to the overall flavor that you get from the interaction.
Got it. The next is from Priyanka Sharma, and I will ask Soma to take this. As a candidate, how to justify and negotiate salaries as we are working from home?
I mean, that has nothing to do with whether it's a video interview or not. The way to negotiate salary is to have a justification for what you're asking for and why. So either some market data or your own personal history or something like that. I think those principles are always the same. If companies have bands or they have a particular salary structure for a particular grade, then I think there is only so much you will be able to push. And I would personally, and maybe Nikki and Khalid can comment, I would not say I need the money, therefore. I mean, that is not a negotiation tactic. You have to justify it basis the value you bring and other benchmark data rather than, oh, I am moving from my parents' house and now I'm going to have to rent my own place, so therefore give me more money. Usually with me that won't fly, but using more justification of you've got an additional qualification or some project that you did which was very amazing, which leads you to believe you can add more value or things like that, those you can highlight as part of negotiation.
Perfect. She also has one more question. Is it okay if we do not have a fancy or a well-furnished background during video interviews?
I missed that. Can you repeat it? Is it
She
okay
asks
to?
that whether a fancy or a well-furnished background is also an essential during job interviews.
No, I think apart from the fact that it should not be messy or embarrassing, any background is fine.
Perfect.
I think simple plain wall is the best. You don't have to think twice. A simple plain wall works best.
Correct. Nikhil, there's one question from Potla Abhijit, and he asks that is fluency must, or talking slowly may not be the best, but a good English to make an impact or impress. I'm just trying to understand what he says, but it's maybe whether do you need a level of fluency, or do you probably need to talk slowly to sort of convey your points from across the table?
So I don't know if he's taking fluency for the speed of speech. Well, look, let me first take the first part, right? So the requirement of language depends on the kind of job you're going for. There will be some jobs which would require you to have a very good level of English proficiency. I would call it proficiency. And if that be so, be prepared for it. There are jobs, and I'm talking about hardcore technology skills, where your technical skills become much more important than your language skills. The proficiency of language will not weigh in as much. Having said that, if you're referring to the speed of speech, I would say be legible. Whether you are speaking a little faster or slower, just make sure the interviewer understands what you are articulating. Grammar, language, etc. is a must, right? So if you are articulating and if you're giving this interview in English, or if you're going for a Hindi based interview, just make sure your language is correct. I mean, depends on the kind of the job you're going for.
Okay, great. There's one Bhudev Mandal who asks that whether what should the interview do if the interviewer said to interviewee to call him by name and not sir and madam? I think a lot of people in India probably suffers from this apprehension, what to do, whether to call the person by name or not.
I do that with all the people who call me sir, and I ask them. I said, and we get interns as well as interviewees. They call you sir, and it's perfectly fine. I think it's a respect to the individual at the end of the day. Howsoever they want you to address them as. So if somebody is requesting to be addressed by their name, I think you should just go ahead and address them by their name.
Correct. I think that's probably the easiest option. There's one question from Satish Kumar, and he says that he asks rather that should we look into the camera or just speak naturally?
Looking into the camera, I think builds that. So when you go to an interview, you would expect to be looking into someone's eye and speaking, right? So when an interview, for example, I am talking to you right now, I can see at your faces, I can gauge the reaction. So that helps build connections, right? Like all of us said, you are in an environment where this camera is the only way into the interviewer's mind and heart, for a lack of better word, right? So it helps to just look into the camera because it helps you gauge the reactions of the interviewer as well. That would be my take, but happy to take Soma and Khalid's views.
I just have a view here. So if it's a face-to-face interview, would we look at somebody's eyes 100% of the time? That might just scare them off. I think we need to be natural. So you look at the camera, you can look around. It's perfectly fine as long as you're not completely looking away or completely looking into it. I think that's gonna become a little monotonous and I don't know what word to use, but.
Great. And there's another question from quite a few questions still lined up is Sabrishwaran. How to develop our communication skills during interviews? Do you need some extra bit of training or learning while preparing for these virtual interviews? Soma, would you like to take this one?
I think my connection is poor. Avik, you'll have to repeat it. I didn't get the full question.
Okay. Can you hear me now properly?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So there is just spell out. Okay, there is Sabrishwaran who asks that how to develop communication skills for interviews. Like I'm just probably extrapolating from what he has said that whether people need extra level. I mean, let's say a couple of more points to develop while speaking into the camera, or is it vastly different from face-to-face ones for communicating? I'm just guessing this is probably what he meant to say.
Yeah, you have to make yourself understood, whatever that takes, right? So whether it is recording yourself, hearing yourself back, or having a friend or a mentor or a guide listen to you and give you feedback how you're sounding. Those would be the tips that I would suggest.
Okay. There's Chinu Maya, and she asks that whether there are tools that support virtual tech interviews, where interviews can ask users to write code and verify instantly, and the typical do's and don'ts during during these sorts of interviews. I think we have discussed the do's and don'ts, but probably the first part of the question, like, are there some virtual, some other tools that support? Any one of you is aware of?
There are many tools. Right?
Sure.
There are many tools available which will enable. So you can screen share and use the tools. I won't take proprietary names here, but there are many tools available in the market right now which are enabling these kind of assessments to happen. There are tools available which actually capture how much longer are you looking at the screen also. So technology is quite advanced in today's world. But I'm not too sure what's the relevance of the question here in the context.
So am I. Okay, let's move over to the other one. Okay, there's from Arvind Kumar, and this is a little funny, I guess. So how to understand whether the interviewer is interested in me or not after, let's say, 5 or 10 minutes into the interview? Okay. I mean, we are getting a vast spectrum of questions.
Well, it's tough. Let me tell you.
Carefully, watch
Yeah.
carefully. You can usually tell if the person is checking their phone or looking here and there, they are not interested. But if they are looking at you, if they're asking follow-up questions, if their questions are connected to what you have said, then they are engaged.
Okay. Nikhil or Khalid, you have anything to add
I
here?
think Soma has said right. And that's why, at times looking in the camera, as Khalid said, you have to gauge and look at interviewers' reactions to your question, right? And that's no different from a real interview. Let me tell you, even in your personal interview face to face, it's very tough to gauge whether the interviewer is interested in me or not, because like an interview, as an interviewer as well, personalities differ. I have had my colleagues who've been extremely stoic in an interview and come out and said excellent candidate, versus the ones who would be very cheerful in the interview and come back and said, oh no, not the guy that I was looking for, or not the girl that I was looking for. So it's tough, and I don't think you can build a skill for that.
Yeah,
Great.
and just to add here, I think just to this, you have complete freedom to actually check. If you feel that the interviewer is not interested, you can very politely ask that, would you want me to pause so that you can do what you're doing? So if I'm taking an interview, I'm just doing something else on my phone. As an interview, you can ask me that, do you want me to pause or continue? Because sometimes people are very good at multitasking. I know one of the executives I used to work with, he would completely be in his phone and he would listen to the entire pitch. I would wonder whether he's understanding what I'm saying or not, but he would. So I think it's okay to ask that question so that you are not disturbing somebody. Ideally, it shouldn't happen in an interview to begin with.
Got it. Got it. I guess we have completed the run through the list of questions. No more questions, but one last question from my end before I wrap this session up. Has this virtual interviews expanded the reach for talent pool from all of you? Are you able to reach out to a larger talent pool when it comes to recruiting? Is it actually giving you more choices?
I think Khalid did mention that, right? So
Yes.
1:7 example that I was giving. Now it's 1:17. I second that, right?
67.
It's opened up certainly a vaster pool for you to interview, and more so because organizations also become very flexible in the places they can hire and retain talent from. So I think reach as well as the talent supply pool has just increased multifold.
Got it. Soma, anything to add to wrap this up?
Sorry, again, I lost you. You're asking me the same question?
Yeah, I was just trying to get your views on this in terms of diversifying the reach of the talent pool. How much has really virtual interviews helped that?
I'm sorry, Avik, I lost you. How much has what?
How much has, through these virtual interviews, have you been able to reach out to a larger talent pool?
Maybe we've lost.
Maybe
Some
there's
as well.
some connectivity problem on Soma's side, and I think for a moment she is also frozen. Soma, can you hear us? No, I think there's some problem. Anyways, I guess we have reached the end of a long session, and I hope it was important and informative to the audience, as it was probably engaging for all the three of you panelists. Hope you enjoyed it. Taking the questions while also sharing your point of views and your experience. Great to have all the three of you with us. It was enjoyable. It was informative, and we will probably meet sometime very soon. So thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Khalid, and good evening to all your listeners and viewers as well.
Thank you, Khalid. Thank you, Nikhil, and thank you, Soma.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.